right, so welcome to CAMS 101. This is a beginner course to discuss some of the tabs in the grantee portal that you all will see. And you can always reach our grantee portal through our DHCD website, and the website is there on the front page. So that everyone knows, we will be sending out the PowerPoint after the event, and there will be a copy of the PowerPoint and the recording on our website in the next few weeks. Today, this is very interactive, so if you have questions throughout the presentation, please go ahead and drop them in chat. We will look at them, as we go through the slides. If it is something that needs further explanation, Jeff will call on you to unmute, and you can ask the question directly. And we have wonderful staff. We have all of our staff on the call today, so that some of the projects have different requirements as we start talking about CAMS. You may find that CDBG has a different requirement for a document than ARS. So we're going to try and cover all those bases, and we will be calling on staff to help us with that throughout the training. Some housekeeping, if you all could, we've got 30 folks now on the line. If you could keep your mute on, and that is if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a row of buttons. The very first button is your microphone, and you can turn it on and off. The second button, of course, is your camera that you can turn on and off. The fourth button over is a raise your hand. If you do have a question that you need to discuss verbally and not put in chat, we can do that as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And CAMS actually stands for something. We actually used an acronym. It's Central Application Management System. And the software was designed for two very specific tasks: applications and project management. And in project management, what we find is that that's what we're going to be going over today. The applications, you all have already completed an application and filled that out and gotten into CAMS. So I know a lot of you are brand new, and that might be the only screens you have seen to date are the application screens. When you go to sign on to the CAMS portal, and like I said, there is a link on our web page that says CAMS Access. Depending on which page you're on our DHCD website, sometimes the CAMS Access bottom is at the top, and sometimes the CAMS Access bottom is at the very bottom of the page. When you click on that, you'll be brought up to this screen. It is your portal screen, and you will be putting in your email and your password. And we're going to talk about how you get signed up in CAMS in just a moment. But this is the screen that you will look at every time you come into CAMS. Under that screen, once you're signed in, you're going to see a menu tab. Today, because it's a very basic getting to know CAMS, we're going to touch on 3 of the tabs. We're going to touch on Manage, Projects and Returns, and Remittances. Under the Manage tab, when you click on it, you actually get a drop-down menu. And we're going to go through each one of those in the drop-down menu under the Manage tab. So the very first button is a user profile. Your user profile is your individual profile. That is where you can go in. Let's say you've had a name change. You've had a phone number. Your desk number has changed. You want to add information. That's for your individual profile, and that's the tab you would hit. The next button down is Organization, and that lays out the details of your organization. You do not have access to change that page. Only the profile manager can. And we're going to talk about the different roles in CAMS in a little bit later. Your organization, it will show the address, the type of organization. Are you a CHODO? Are you a nonprofit? Are you a local unit of government? And give the details of who your profile manager is for this CAMS project. Your staff, that is a tab we're going to work on today. So staff is your organization staff that have profiles in CAMS. we're going to talk about how to add someone to CAMS and how to remove them should they have retired, left your organization, or no longer working on that project. Then we're going to go in depth on the project roles and show you all of the roles that can be associated with your grant and how to pick and choose what role your staff member should have. And finally, in this tab, we're going to talk about audits, how to upload your audit using this drop-down option. The other two tabs on there are documents and password. Documents on this page are your organizational documents. They are not the documents you're submitting for reports due to your CD specialist or to the project. An example of a document in this category would be your 501c3 paperwork. Your MOU with another organization. And finally, on that tab is your password, which is your individual password. You can go in, that's where you can go in and change it and update it as needed. So all of those categories are under the first Manage tab, which is the first tab on your menu. We're going to look at staff management. So let's say, and I'm going to pull people out here. Let's say that I am the profile manager and we've been awarded a new grant, and Joanne and Amanda are staff members and I need to get them CAMS access. Well, that's what the profile manager does. They have full access to give and remove staff from CAMS. So in here, and I apologize that it's a little small, but in here it asks for the new staff member's first name, their last name, their email address, their work phone number. You can put a cell phone in, and it is optional. And the last button on the left-hand side says CAMS primary role. In order to get them enrolled in CAMS, you have to assign them a role. That role can change down the road. So don't panic that once you've set that, it's written in stone. This is just to get them in and get them assigned to a project and get them a CAMS ID. Once you have this little bit of information filled out, you're going to go over here and there's an add button. You're going to click add. As soon as you do that, CAMS is going to create a profile for this new user, and the new user, let's say, like I said, I needed Joanne and Amanda to be on this, then they are going to each receive an email telling them that they have a CAMS profile now and that they need to log in with the temporary password that's provided in that email. Once they get in, they can change their password under that first menu tab under passwords. Are there any questions up to this point?
None that I see quite yet.
Okay, wonderful. We're gonna keep going. Okay, so staff management. You can also remove someone from staff. Like I said, let's say they've left, they're no longer working on that project, they've retired. You can remove them following the same information. Their name will now appear in a drop-down list for you of here are all your staff members, and you can go all the way across to the last column on the right-hand side. There is an edit button and a remove button. Let's say they are currently a project manager, but now you want them in a view-only role. So you don't want them to be able to upload documents. You can edit their profile and change that. Or if they're no longer on the project or have left the organization, you can remove them. And once removed from an organization list, a user no longer has access to CAMS. You would have to give them access again to CAMS. So if you're just changing their title, it's better to edit, excuse me. If you are removing them because they have left the organization or they're no longer going to be working on projects in CAMS, then you hit the remove button. Okay, now we're going to look at the next drop down, which was project roles. Assigning a new project role. Like I said, you've gone in and I've created an account for Joanne and Amanda as the profile manager. But in doing that, I wasn't sure what their role was going to be. Oh, yes, Elizabeth, thank you for bringing that up. If someone leaves your organization, you cannot give that password to that next person. That person has to get signed in just like everybody else, and CAMS will assign them a new temporary password. Absolutely. So with adding staff and adding new, can you be in CAMS in multiple organizations? That is a very good question. Kelly or Elizabeth?
Yes, you can. Especially if you're a consultant, you can be added as a consultant to multiple projects.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
And even within the same organization, you can be assigned to multiple projects. So multiple organization, multiple projects, it works both ways.
Great. Thank you all. Adding a new staff person. So like I said, I've created an account for Amanda and Joanne, but not knowing what their exact role is going to be in that project. So I gave them a general role. I now can go in and assign them whether they're a project manager or a consultant or a fiscal analyst, and pull their name down, and which would be right here. You've got a drop-down menu to see all your staff. Then you can go to project role, figure out which role they're going to go over, and we're going to go over each role very shortly. And then you're going to click add. So that's how you add staff to projects. This is the chart that you all need to print out. And as you see, we relied heavily on the CAMS user guide. These charts are found in pages 17 through 19. So, make sure that you're referring back to the CAMS user guide on a regular basis. It is updated routinely as needed, so it will provide you the most up-to-date information. With the organization, so you have your organization pages, and then you have your project information. Under your organization, you have a profile manager or your organization head. You can have up to 2 people in this role. And I would always think best practice is to create a 2-person system. It's a check and balance. If I assigned Amanda and Joanne, one is profile manager and one is organization head, and next Friday Joanne wins the lottery and says, later, then if I only had assigned Joanne and she left, your account could be locked out unless you reach back out to DHCD and try and unlock it. But by having 2 people there, then Amanda can step up and say, okay, we need another backup, and assign someone else to that role and change their title. So a profile manager has, if you notice in this column, full access to everything. They can manage the organization, they can manage staff, they can manage project roles, manage audits, manage documents, and apply for any grant in the CAMS system. Of course, again, under project roles, they have full access to project information, full access to the budget, to remittances, and to reports and documents. So let's go on down a little bit. Under project manager, some of these things are view only. They have full access to the project roles, so they can help assign roles, but many of these are view only. So managing audits, managing documents, they don't have. But yes, they can apply for a grant. A project administrator is view only for the organization. They don't even have access to manage staff. They can't view it. So, be very careful as you're assigning people. Refer back to this chart to make sure that whatever project role you're assigning can meet what you're expecting that person to do in CAMS. Financial analyst is another role you can choose, and you can see that they have access to the documents they need. They have access to managing audits, to managing documents. Very good, Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, can you unmute and say that, please?
Sure. For CDBG and for IPR projects, the persons assigned the financial analyst role will typically be those persons assigned listed on the certifications, signatures, and address for being allowed to submit remittance requests.
Thank you. That's a very important item to note. Yes. And if you notice here with the financial analyst, they also, again, dealing with money, they have full access to the budget, full access to remittances, and full access to reports and documents. Now, some of you all use consultants. It's very important that the consultant can at least look at what you've got going on, but maybe not touch what you have going on. So there's view only for a lot of the information. They can view the staff, they can view project roles, they can view audits, and they can view documents. There is a position called a partial access, where you can grant them partial access to this piece, which would be to be able to apply for a grant within CAMS. Under project roles, the consultant has full access to project information and partial access to budget, remittance, and reports. And then you have a role called organizational review. Let's say that, maybe a board member, maybe a director, they don't want to be touching CAMS, but they like to be able to go in and look at it if they could. So you have someone who is view only for all of the different categories. Does anyone have any questions on this chart or how to choose what role you would assign to your staff? Okay, then we're going to move on. Just like you can add someone to a project, you can remove staff from a project. So what you're going to do, yes.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find my
That's
mute
okay.
button. If you assign yourself or somebody else for one particular project, say a project manager role, and then they're in another project in a different capacity, can you assign them a different role in that project for CAMS? So can you have different roles and different functions within CAMS? I guess is what I'm really asking.
My understanding is that you can, because you're actually picking out the project you want them to work on and how you want them to work on it. So that if, I'll go back, let's see.
John, there's one exception to that, and that's for a consultant or a PDC staff member. They can only be assigned the consultant role because our contract is with the grantee, not with the consultant or the PDC staff member, and therefore they cannot do the actual submitting. So that's the only exception, is consultants.
Okay, great. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah,
so
thank
yes, yeah, where you're pulling them down, you're pulling down a specific project to look at. So yes, you can assign them roles within each project.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's the same thing to remove someone. You would find the project you're looking at, you would find their name, and over to the far right, you would delete that person. So and I know you all had asked earlier, they actually give a little tidbit in the guide that says a user can be assigned a project role on more than one of the organization's active projects simultaneously. So yes, you can have more than one. If you are deleting that person, you can also add another person. So I need to swap out Jeff for Amanda. You can then add that person right back behind them, and it's going to remove one and add one. Okay, any other questions about staff and roles before we move into audits? Yes, Yvonne.
Looks like Yvonne has one.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to ask the question about having the same person on the project in more than one of the roles. Is that okay? Or is a person?
Typically, you don't do that, no.
Right.
Typically,
Oh,
you give them you assign them the highest level role that they need to be in. So, for example, you might want to have 2 people as a profile manager because they need to do financial work and other stuff. So you wouldn't assign them both the profile manager and the financial assistant. You would just assign them the highest role they need to be in.
Okay,
Sorry for jumping in.
thank you.
not at all, Elizabeth. Thank you. Okay, any further questions before we move on to audits? Okay. All right, with audits, you cannot just upload them as a regular document in your reports and documents. Our fiscal department does not pull from that. There is actually kind of a Dropbox in CAMS for audits. And so on that first tab that we talked about where it said manage, one of the items in the dropdown is audit. And so what you want to do is on the manage tab, you're going to select the audits from the drop-down menu. And this is very important. It says see DHCD's audit policy if you're unsure of the requirements of your organization. Some organizations can submit a financial statement if they're small enough. Others are required to submit a full audit. So you need to know which one, and you can talk to your CD specialist. You need to know which document you are required to upload. You are going to browse in your computer. So you're going to click the choose file to browse in your computer to look for that audit or that financial statement. And when you click on it, you're actually going to be asked, what is the reporting period for this audit or financial statement? Is it, January to December 2021? Is it July 1 to June 30, 2022? Whatever that period is covering, you have to manually fill that in when you're uploading that audit. And then the fourth thing is you have to indicate whether or not the audit was uploaded to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. So there's a checkbox, and you will check if you have done that. And then you're going to click save. Always save your work. Sometimes on some of the screens, you're going to see 2 buttons, a save and a submit. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Elizabeth. That's great. So you definitely want to hit the click save and send it. And that is, for those that are on site in the chat, that is the link to the audit policy for DHCD. So any questions on uploading your audit? Okay. One thing to remember as we go forward, if your audit expires and you have not submitted a new audit, so you make sure you remember your dates, that can delay processing of your remittances because you will be out of compliance in the CAMS system. So always, put a tickler in your calendar, make good friends with your auditor or your accountant, and make sure that you get those in on time. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Project and Reports tab from that main menu. Under the Project Management tab, there is one called Projects and Reports that you can find in the CAMS user guide. It's pages 34 through 45. It goes in depth on everything that can be submitted, how it's submitted, what kind of information you need. When you open up that tab, the Project Management tab, you're going to see 4 sub-tabs within there. One is Project Information, one is Budget, one is Remittances, and one is Reports and Documents. We're looking at the Reports and Documents. But just to give you an idea, this is your Project Information page. Here, you're going to have your primary contact information for who we should be contacting at your agency that works on CAMS on a regular basis. A lot of times that is your profile manager that will show up there. The project location, and this is one we definitely want to stress. The project location is not where your company resides. The project location is where the grant funds are going. That's an easy way to think about it. So for example, under ARS, you might have an office in Roanoke, but you've bought a house in Blackstone. That project, it will have the Blackstone address because that's the house you're renovating. You are going to need to put the address in. You're going to put the zip code in, and CAMS does require the +4. You can actually click what's my +4 if you don't know the extra 4 digits for that zip code, and it takes you to the United States Post Office to look up that zip code, and it will provide you the 4 digits for that. Once you have that done, at the bottom here, you will see we need a little bit more information. What county is it in? Is it in a city? And you can just click the Add Edit County, and it's a choice, multiple choice box. Same thing for the city. And if you're in a town, you could also have a town in the county. Then you're going to click your Save button, and that saves the information for your project. The second tab is your budget tab. And in your budget tab, when you first pull it up, it is going to show you that you have DHCD requested money here. Your other funding, if you have any leverage funding or other sources of funding, it's going to show in your second column. And then far to the left or far to the right, it's going to show you the available funds left in each. Now, this was an ARS budget, and it's very basic, but there's little pluses to the side of each of those. So under home buyer, if you click the plus, it will expand out and show each line item that's available to draw from. The same thing with new construction, and the same thing with rehab money. You will be able to add here. Now, budget narrative. In a budget narrative, you can actually give us a small explanation as to what you're requesting and why. The budget. So there are several. Yes, Yvonne.
All right, Sherry, I just wanted to ask with the project information page.
Yes.
So if you have, well, I guess you pretty much are working one location at a time. Do we just change that project location? Is that how that will work?
You're talking about like a CDBG housing rehab project, Yvonne?
Well, with the ARS.
Sherry, do you want to answer an ARS question?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm sorry. The ARS, yes, you would be going in and changing it as the project moves along.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Okay, so with this, like I said, you can place your narrative and give us a quick explanation. In the next few pages, we're going to break out what this kind of looks like. So with your budget, you can revise the budget. There's going to be pages on there that tell you what the status is. Is the budget incomplete, which means you saved it, but you did not submit it, because remember, there's 2 buttons. There's a pending, which means you did save it and submit it, and DHCD is reviewing it. Or there is approved, which is the, it means you're good to go and you can start drawing your remittances again. There is a declined. So if for some reason we cannot approve it, you will get a notice that we were unable to approve your request, and you reach out to your CD specialist so that you can amend it. Okay, so project management remittances. Again, you're going to be in CAMS. You're going to go to your projects and reports tab. You're going to click detail next to the project that you want to submit a remittance on. So let's say you've got 4 projects you're working on simultaneously. You're going to look at it and pick the one that you want to submit a remittance on. You're going to click the remittance tab, and then you're going to click the new remittance, and we'll show you what that looks like in just a minute. The budget has to be approved in order to enter a new remittance. If you have a pending or incomplete budget, you cannot submit a remittance for that. Now, here where it says project management, and you've got the list of all of the draws that you have, or remittances that you have requested to date. It gives you the amount of each remittance, and it gives you the status of each remittance. You've got approved, paid, this one was denied for a reason, and this one is pending. But what I want you to look at is this piece of the thing right here where it says remittance number. See how they're all blank? Well, we're going to ask that you create a numerical number for each one of these going forward, because let's just say that you are on an ARS project and you're doing 10 houses and each house has 3 remittances on it. That's 30 remittances that have no corresponding number or date on them, or property address. And if, I'll use the example, if Amanda came to my desk at 4:55 on Friday afternoon and said, the director wants to know how much money did they spend on 123 Oak Lawn, I would have to open each one of these up and look at them to see how many remittances you sent and how much they were. So what we would like to see, and we'll show you the tab of what that looks like, is in ARS, I want numerical draws. So draw 1 is going to be 123 Main Street. Draw 2 is going to be 410 Oak Lawn. Draw 3 is going to be 3 Jupiter Street. I want to have the address and a numerical order of draws. The other thing to remember here is, let's say like this one was denied. So technically that would be draw 3. If you are resubmitting it for payment because you fixed whatever they've asked you to fix, don't number it 4. Number it 3 revised or 3A, but don't give it another number completely, because we know that's the draw that is next in line to be paid. Okay. This right here, as you open up the new remittance, this is where you would put that information we were just talking about. So for ARS, it would be, draw 1, 123 Main Street. Now I'm going to let CDBG and ARC and IPR talk about what they want there, so you all can do that.
EB, do you want to talk about CDBG and I can talk about ARC?
Okay, what specifically do you want me to talk about? I don't have anything to add, so I'm sorry. I don't know what you want me to add.
I was just going to ask how you all preferred your names on your remittances.
No, exactly the way you said it. It would be perfect.
Okay.
I agree with EB for ARC as well.
Wonderful. Okay. So
Oh, I would like to say, just to reiterate, if we do have to deny a remittance request, to renumber it as remittance request number 5 revised or remittance request number 5A, something like that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And
It
it
looks
looks
like
like
Kenny has a question there too, Sherry.
Kenny, go ahead.
Okay, so can you clarify? You're asking us to identify our remittances with ARS or CDBG number such and such for that project. Is that what you're saying?
No, you don't have to put the name of the program. For CDBG, all you need is numbers, because everything, you're working on multiple houses, multiple different kinds of projects. All you need is a number. If you have to resubmit a denied remittance, you would use the same number as the denied remittance. However, you will add REV for revised or 2A or 2 like that. For CDBG, we do want the name of the family being served. You know how there is a protocol and how things are named in IPR Flex.
So all we're going to provide is a name and an address. Did you say? What would you want to clarify that?
It
We
depends,
want-
Kenny, on the type of project you have.
Okay.
So if you have an ARS, you have to put in the actual street address. If you have an IPR project, you're adding the family's last name. If you have CDBG, we just want consecutive numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you have an internal invoice number that identifies it for yourselves, I've never denied it because of that. But usually most people just go 1, 2, 3, 4, and if 4 is denied, then they do 4 revised. Does that clarify it?
Okay. I think
You
it
just
does.
have to remember what type of funding am I using? And that tells you how you respond, how you fill it in.
Okay. Now, the next question I have on that is when it comes to us, to our automated account, to our bank account, is it going to come with that description tied to it, or will we still just have a lump sum? Because in our case, we might be getting money from LHR, ARS, CDBG, IPR. Will those come broken out that way, or will they just come as a lump sum to our bank account?
We have no control over how DOA puts your funding in your account, Kenny. The best way is if when you submit the remittance, when you first put the project in, you have to put in what account, DOA account you want.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only control. We can tell DOA, this is the account you need to put it into for CERCAP. But if they lump it with other funds, we've got no control over that. And they do that.
Yeah, they do. And that's why it's kind of difficult for us sometimes. Well, who does this money go to?
That's right. But unfortunately, that's something you have to take up with DOA.
And can we get more than one account with you guys for deposit?
Yeah, I mean, I've got some grantees. I've got like a dozen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you want to set up an account with DOA for each program,
Yes.
you could do it that way.
That's
You
what
just need to submit the paperwork. And then my understanding, Kenny, is they tell our financial people,
Mhm.
and somehow then it miraculously appears in CAMS that you've got multiple accounts. You just need to make sure that when you set up the project, you tell them which account it goes into.
Okay. I'll need to talk to my finance people and see if that's something we can do.
This is Renee. I have a question about the CDBG. We're not buying houses or giving money to people or however else that's going on, since our grants are not the same. Are we putting in just like the title of whatever we're purchasing? For example, refrigerated trucks, would that be what you wanted, or would you just want it to be like the title of the type of product we were purchasing? Or do you want it to just be a date? And
Renee,
yeah.
Is this a COVID project?
Yeah, this is the food bank.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Joanne, feel free to
Elizabeth?
jump in. Yeah. Oh, Blair's here. Blair
Yeah.
can answer it.
I'm here. Hi, Renee.
Hi.
Are you talking about your internal invoice number?
Yeah, so do you want it to be so draw 1 would be administrative, draw 2 might be reimbursement for truck purchases? Is that how you want it to want us to list it, or do you want it to be under something different?
For all of your remittances, the internal invoice number will just be numerical consecutive. So your first invoice or remittance that you submitted was invoice number 1.
Right.
And the next one you submit will be number 2. You don't have to add any additional information.
Okay, great. All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay, so any more questions before we move forward? Want to make sure we give everybody plenty of chance to ask if they've got something. Okay, so, as we said, for each program, you're going to give it a name. One for 410 Oak Lawn, some in numerical order. So with that, you can actually see on your first tab what your project budget is, what's total paid out, what's pending. So maybe you already submitted draws that you or remittances that you've not seen yet. So you've got, in this case, you've got $29.92.99 pending. You haven't started this remittance yet, and it tells you the available funds. So here are your activities, and some of them have subcategories that you can hit the plus to break out. And what's nice is the available funds over here, as you start requesting monies, will automatically calculate for you. So if you went in and tried to spend on this construction rehab, there's $3,400 left. If you came in and attempted to spend $5,000, it's going to put you in the negative. So always be aware of your balance of funds over here. Okay. In your remittance, like I said, when you click the plus button, you actually get to see each line item that shows up and what each line item has as a budget. The ones that are in bold are the totals of that. So you would go in and enter your information here as to what you were looking for, what you want, what you're requesting with this remittance. And then you have to give us documents, because although we like you, we want to make sure that you have supporting documents for the money that you're requesting. So you're going to choose a file. That file can be a zip file, it can be a PDF, it can be an Excel or a Word document submitted in there. And what we ask, especially with ARS, because we will collect several documents at one time for a draw or remittance, we ask that you make them into a single package. So we're not looking at 4 separate documents that are attached to the CAMS file. So if you can make it into a single document for that request, that's very helpful. With that, of course, each program has requirements depending on the draw of what you need to request. We could spend a whole hour on what documents are needed. We're just going to do a very short, brief example in ARS, to show that you have acquired the property or that you have site control. We would need your closing statement, or if you already own it, we would need the tax bill showing us that you are the legal owner. If you are doing an ARS construction rehab, we need the contractor's contract that you're under contract with. We need the scope of work, and we need any things that are any inspections that are being performed on that project. So everyone is different, and I urge you to, if you have a question, to reach out to your CD specialist, tell them you're getting ready to submit, and have I covered everything? And I'm going to let Elizabeth and Kelly pop in, because I know that CDBG has different requirements, and sometimes you even have a cover sheet with those requirements.
So if you attended the grant management workshop in January, we do have a new cover sheet, and that should be on the website soon. If you do not have the new CAMS remittance cover sheet, email your CDS and we can send it to you. We like to see invoices for everything that you're getting from us, and we would, I think everybody would agree with this, we want in chronological order on how you submit it on the remittance cover sheet, and that's the way we want the invoice. We also want the pay apps if that's applicable. Anything that we're paying, we need to have documentation for it.
Cancel checks.
Cancel checks as well.
All right, that's wonderful. Thank you, guys. So the last thing that you can do with your remittance page is, let's say it's a little complicated, or you want to tell us that, this is for 410 Oak and 411 Oak. there is a place at the very bottom that says add any additional explanation for the remittance. It's optional, but if you want to clarify something with us, you think it might help get it through, then absolutely you type in a little note to us there and we'll see it. Now, this is one of those pages that has 2 buttons at the bottom. So you're going to hit save. And then once you save your work, you're going to hit submit. If you save it and don't submit, it will not go through. And we will not see it.
And with CDBG projects, if you have a consultant, this is where the consultant can only hit save. The grantee itself has to hit the submit button because our contract is with the grantee. So your consultant will typically send you an email saying they've uploaded the remittance request and save it. And now you have to hit submit. Most of my consultants copy me on that email. So I know that. And so then there's 2 sets of eyes making sure it actually gets submitted.
Absolutely. That's a great idea. And that's going to be listed in the best practices at the end, is notifying your CD specialist when you're doing a budget revision, when you're doing a remittance, so that we can be on the lookout for it. Okay. Project management, your reports and your documents. Again, with this tab, you are going to go to your projects and reports tab. You're going to click detail next to the reports or the project that you want to enter, especially if you have multiple projects in there. You want to go to that project. You don't want to submit an appraisal for 410 Oak Lawn if you're sticking it in 123 Main Street. So make sure you're looking for the right project when you're entering that information. And you're gonna choose the appropriate program, and there are several things that can get submitted here. There are reports that are required, whether they're monthly or quarterly, and sometimes those are actually preloaded in your CAMS file to go in and fill out and have completed. Other times they're reports that you all keep, but you know that by the 5th of the month that has to be uploaded and supported in CAMS. There are contract documents that need to be uploaded and put into CAMS. There are other miscellaneous documents that we may request from you, or a report that comes from HUD that we're going to send to you and say, fill it out and upload it into CAMS for us, please. So this is a large area where we have a lot of documents. And the one thing to remember with this is, again, because there's a lot of documents, we're going to ask you and we're going to walk you through naming those documents. So if it is under your, you've got your 4 tabs that we've gone through, your reports and documents tab, there is a drop-down box. There is a whole list. It's not, this is just a partial list, but there's a whole list of documents you can choose from. Some are project specific and some are just all around. There's media documents, correspondent documents, contract documents, miscellaneous. So go through that list, choose what best fits for what you're trying to submit, and then click on that. Now, when you do, you're going to see this little thing here. It says contract document, because that's what you chose, edit. That is the most important button, edit. Again, think of an ARS grantee who has completed 10 houses, and we've got 5 miscellaneous documents or contract documents per house. That's 50 plus documents that are going to show up under your project management tab that all are going to have the name contract document. I would have to sort through all 50 of those to figure out what it is I'm trying to find. So as soon as you choose what document type you want to upload, one of the first things you want to do is edit this and change the name. You can, if it is a contract related document, leave contract document on there, but hyphen, 410 Oak Lawn appraisal, 410 Oak Lawn termite report, whatever the case may be, tell us in plain English what it is you're submitting. And I will let, again, CDBG and ARC pop in because you all might have a different requirement for naming or ordering your documents.
Yeah, I just want to re-emphasize what Sherry said, that naming the document is so important. So we have a general idea what it is. And if Sherry only has 5 documents that say miscellaneous, then she's getting off light. So that's not to say that your CDS may not go in there and tweak it a tad, but yeah, just like if you're uploading a letter, you know, it could be budget revision number 1 with worksheet, or it could be miscellaneous progress report, April 2022. Just give us something, please. So we don't have to go in and, I mean, I end up renaming everything. So this would really, really be helpful because I've got 20 projects. So I really don't need to spend that much time doing this. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it if you could do this.
Yes, it is a big help. I have one project that I will tell you all about. It has been active for 12 years now. And they are on draw 430 something. So you can imagine what that document page looks like for me. And depending on who was uploading, you know, maybe a third of them were named. You know, I'll look to retire before I have to go in and rename all of those. So this is a critical one. Please, please, please name your document so that we can figure out what it is.
Right. And this goes back to Sherry's earlier illustration. If we suddenly get a request that we need to find a particular document for the deputy director by 5 o'clock on Friday, and we have to go and open every document, that really puts the pressure on us. So if you could give it at least a generic description, that would be great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what you're going to do is once you have renamed your document, you're going to choose your file. Again, that's looking in your computer for what you're trying to upload. And, you know, if you want to type in a small description, that's great. But again, here's that to system. So you've got to save. And once you save it, you can hit submit. Now, after you save it, let's say that you need to have a quick discussion with your CD specialist. You can hit the discuss button. It only pops up after you've hit save, and it will start a discussion that is recorded in CAMS that, you know, hey, I'm submitting a letter of support. You know, can you let me know? It wasn't signed. Can you let me know if this is acceptable? And, you know, our answer is going to be no, but that will tell you what you're looking at there. So you can discuss or you can save and then hit submit directly. Are there any questions about uploading a document? Okay.
So Sherry, I just want to add something because I'm finding that even some staff don't know this. If you use the discuss feature, and let's say you resolve the issue, but for some reason you need to go back and look at that document, before you would have been able to click on the name of the document. I'm not sure that that's what you can do in the portal, because I know on the dashboard, which is what we see, you have to click on the name of the person who last approved the document. So that might be the person who submitted it, or it could be me when I review it, but I no longer can click on that document name and get the document. I have to go over into another column. I'm assuming that because I have to do it, the grantee has to do it.
That's
just the one oddity about discuss that I'm aware of.
Okay, absolutely. So that's something to think about. And if you don't want it recorded in CAMS, then, you know, email your CD specialist as soon as you've submitted it and tell them what you've done, just so they can go in and look at it. Okay, so, you know, as we wrap up, we want to talk about the best practices. And the number one thing is read the CAMS user guide. It is 46 pages. It is being updated constantly to make it more user-friendly. When it first came out, it was like reading a robotics manual, and now they have made it very user-friendly with lots of pictures, lots of drawings, lots of graphs. So please read through the user guide. It gives you all the information you need for your portal to work in CAMS.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say that, Sherry mentioned that it's like 46 pages, and my first thought is, oh no, don't tell them that. They'll get scared and not look at it. But Sherry's absolutely correct. It's a lot of illustrations.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it is really, really user-friendly. It's nothing
Yes.
like Sherry said, it's nothing like the original one, which even staff didn't like to go into and look at it. They've done a really great job of revising it and making it user-friendly. And if you're a visual person like I am, really will appreciate the number of illustrations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a great guide now. And I'm actually going to flip tabs here in a minute and just show you what it looks like. But again, another best practice is numbering your remittance requests and naming them if they're ARS. It's just critical to know, and always put the number first. That is something else. If you put the property address first, it's going to shuffle them in alphabetical order, and I'll get, draw 4, draw 17, draw 3 because of the property address. So always start with the number so that it does a correct lineup of how you've submitted the draws.
Hey, so Sherry, that reminds me of something when you were talking reports and documents. You can, there are ways that you can reorder the documents depending upon what column heading you click on. So
Wonderful.
for example, I like reordering it so I can see what's the most recently submitted document, but you can play around in there and figure out which way you like to look at it best. So you can, like Sherry said, you could do it by the name of the document, but you can also do it by the date it was submitted and other things. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Absolutely. And again, naming your reports, we cannot tell you how just utterly important that is, to create a name for the report and not just upload it as a contract document or miscellaneous or, report. And then of course, finally, notify your CD specialist when you're submitting a remittance or a budget request. Yes, we're all in CAMS on a regular and reoccurring basis, but it's always nice to know, okay, you submitted it, and I'll give you. All right, bye, Amanda. I will give you an example. Is we had a grantee that had saved but not submitted, and got a testy email a week later saying nobody's gotten back to me. Is this in process? And it wasn't even submitted yet. So if the grantee had shot us an email and said, hey, I've submitted for $40,000, then Jeff and I could have looked at it and said, oh, we don't see it on our side. Did you hit submit? And that would have taken a week's worth of time. So it is important. It keeps everybody in the loop about what's going on. And, of course, like I said, those are my 4 that I've come up with, but we work with a lot of projects. So I want to open the floor up to, to Joanne, Susan, all the CD staff, and see if you have other tips and techniques that you would like to provide for the basic CAMS 101.
I don't, Sherry, I think you've done a great job of covering everything. And the questions that were asked shared some more information. So I don't have anything to add unless anybody has a question specific to using CAMS for CDBG or IPR.
Okay, I don't have anything to add either.
I would like to add, does everybody know how to zip documents and files for really big documents? Because we do have We do have a limit. Sometimes it vacillates between like 2 gigs and, and 500 megabytes. But if you have a really big document, zipping everything together instead of having to upload like, 15 different things makes your life a lot easier. And if you need help on how to zip a document, you can email me if you would like to.
That's a great tip, Kelly, because there are sometimes you're going to want to upload, 4 or 5 documents that all pertain to the same subject matter, and you can just zip them so you're only uploading one time and not having to do it 4 or 5 times. Great tip.
And I would like to also offer a friendly reminder of the timing of uploading the documents in CAMS. For example, if you are preparing to draw down your first remittance request, make sure that a fully executed copy of the contract is in CAMS and that all of the required pre-contract documents have been uploaded in CAMS. So that way it won't delay your first payment, because we know how excited everybody is to get that first remittance in the system. And also a reminder, if you have a project that has an individual contract, like a housing rehab project or a downtown revitalization project with a facade contract, that those executed contracts have been uploaded in CAMS before you request a remittance for reimbursement for those addresses.
Those are great tips. Does anybody else have any questions or tips that they'd like to provide? Okay. Before we go, I do want to just kind of quickly show you what the CAMS user guide looks like. And as you can see, it is 46 pages, and that's with the cover page. So it's 45 pages of reading and looking at pictures. But just to give you a sense of what they've done is, they've gone into best practices, frequently asked questions, doing a program search, registration, login. I forgot my password. The manager's profiles and the primary roles, managing projects.
Sherry, can I jump in there? If you forget your password, please do not contact your CD specialist. We have no way of helping you with that. There is a CAMS help desk, and you email the help desk and they will help you identify what your password is. They're also the people who assign passwords to new staff members.
Absolutely, yes. So, we've got, of course, managing project roles, the role explanations. It's the chart that was in this presentation. Managing audits, managing documents, resetting your own password. So in case you want to change your password, that's on that Manage tab. Of course, because it deals with all of CAMS, there's a whole entire section on applying for funding, your status page, your reports, your project information. All of that is in there. All of the information on remittance is in there. But, when we said that it is a lot of there is some reading, but they always try and go through and take snippets of what the actual portal looks like to be able to show you. And they give lots of examples of, how you register, how you fill items out. I'm scrolling through very quickly, but I just wanted to show you that it's broken out very well. Here's your login page when you come in. So it is not, paragraph after paragraph after paragraph of reading. It's very easy format to follow, and gives a very in-depth explanation of everything that is going on. So, having said all that, I knew we wouldn't take up the full 2 hours. We wanted to give you all plenty of time to ask questions as we went through. And, that is the presentation. Like I said, it will be coming out in the next few weeks. We are going to capture the emails on this training because it was such a small training for new grantees. And we're going to turn the PowerPoint into a PDF and go ahead and send it out to you in the next day or so. And then it will be on the website in the next few weeks. So any further questions as we wrap up?
Great job. Thank you all.
Oh wait, quick one, Sherry. It looks like there was one that came over from Cora. Lost it there. Was CAMS developed for DHCD?
Yes, they actually sent a software team in that sat with our housing division for several days, if not weeks, to figure out what we needed and how it would be best be put to use in the software. And we understand, you know, it's overwhelming. I mean, we completely get that it is overwhelming, and that's why we try to just take 3 tabs today and walk through them. Jeff and I will say this: if we want an additional training, if you all have questions or say we really need you to cover this or cover that, if you will start emailing Jeff with your questions, that will help us create the next training as to what you all need, what you all are looking for. This was just to get your feet wet.
This is Joanne Pierman. I would suggest that you play around in CAMS a little bit and familiarize yourself first before you request another training, because I think you'll find it intuitive once you begin going through the various pages and tabs and learning how it works. So, hold off on contacting Jeff until you've played around with it a little bit, and, keep a list of your questions so that we will know how to address you in any future trainings.
To echo what Joanne just said, someone once told me that you can't break it. So that was helpful advice. That really helped me get a little brave.
That's correct. Once your user profile is developed and you know that you can only view and you can't really go in there and make any changes, you're really good.
All right, everybody. If that's it, we want to thank you for attending. And like Joanne said, get your profile set up, get in there and start, looking around in the system, read your CAMS user guide. Can't stress that enough. Thank you for attending. And then can staff hold back for just a moment? And you all have a great rest of your afternoon.
Okay, thanks.